Hello everyone, this video is about how to create an ERD and how to insert data records for project 1. And let's take a look at the business rule here. So the first two entities, the first two tables we need to create is the parent table and the player table. So here, these 4 business rules are about the relationship between parent and player. A player must have a parent must have a player may have many parents, a parent may have many players. If you remember the business writing in assignment 3, then we can say a parent has one too many or at least one player, and one player has one too many or at least one parent. So this is a many-to-many relationship, but the minimum cardinalities of both sides are 1, which means one parent need to be associated with at least one player, and one player needs to be associated with at least one parent. So that's the reason we need to insert this bridge entity registers to split the many-to-many relationship between parent and player into 2 one-to-many relationship. So since the minimum cardinalities for both parents and player in this relationship are 1, so that's the reason also here, as you can see, the minimum cardinalities for registers, and here also the minimum cardinalities for registers are also 1. Okay, so let me pull out the MySQL workbench and still add model, add diagram, and the first let's first create the parent table. Table name is parent, and the first attribute, also the primary key, parent ID, and its a primary key, of course, should be set as not null. And since this is an int data type, and we will not use any negative number as parent ID, so we also set it as on-site to expand the data range. And this AI, if you still remember, stands for auto increment, which means if you forget to put the data value for this primary key attributes, the system will automatically set the data value for you. But it only works for those single attribute primary key. So if it's a composite primary key, then please don't click this AI. Okay, the next attribute, parent last name, virchar 45, and this is a required attribute, so it's not null. Then parent first name, virchar 45, not null. Then parent street, parent city, parent state. So since the character for a state is always in 2 characters. So we set it as char2, and also it's not no. And the next one I think is parent zip code. And it's int. So for all int related data type like tiny int, small int, medium int, big int, please all set them as onside. And parent phone number. This is a big int, not no, onside. And parent email address, virtual 100. This is an optional. This is an optional attribute, so we don't need to set it as not no. So the data value for this attribute can be no. And the last one is parent. I think it's parent notes. Yeah, notes. Virtual 255. It's also an optional table. Oh, sorry, optional attribute. So you don't need to set it as not no. Okay, so this is a parent table, and let's then create the player table. Table name, player, and the primary key is player ID, onside auto increment, because this is a single attribute primary key, and player last name. So okay, so if you check this slide, the second attribute here is a team ID, but it's actually a foreign key which maintains the one-to-many relationship between team and player. So we will add it later. Player last name. It's not null attribute. Player first name. And player age. So we set this data type as tiny int. So if you still remember, the data range for the tiny int data type is between 0 and 255. So I think it's enough for the age attribute. So since it's still an int data type, so it's also onside. And the next one, player phone number. It's a big int. Not no onside. Next one, player email address. So this is an optional attribute. And the last one is player notes. This is also an optional attribute. So we don't select the not null here. Okay, so now we have the parent table and the player table. So we need to create that bridge table between them, which is the register table. So if you still remember the definition of composite entity, it inherits its primary key from its parent entity. So this regests table has two attribute primary key. The first is the parent ID, and second is the player ID. So these two attributes are both primary key attribute. So you should set both of them as primary key, and of course they are on side. But this time, don't click the auto increment because it's not a single attribute primary key. And these two attributes also serve as foreign key to maintain the relationship between parent and the register and player and the register. So we will see how to create a relationship later. And a composite entity has its own unique attributes. So here the registers table can have register cost, decimal 52, and this is a required attribute. And also the register date. So of course this is a date attribute. Also it's a required attribute. Last one, register notes. This is optional. This is optional attribute. Okay, now let's create a relationship between these three tables. So there is a one-to-many relationship between parent and registers, and parent is on the one side and registers is on the many side. So we always first click the foreign key. This parent ID in register table served as both part of its primary key and also the foreign key between parent and register table. So we first click this parent ID in register table and then the parent ID in the parent table. And similarly, this player ID also serve as both part of its primary key and also the foreign key for the relationship between player and registers. So similarly, we first click the player ID in register table and then the player ID in player table. So as you can see, one-to-many and one-to-many. Okay, so next table is a team table. So if we go back to the business room, a team may or may not have a player. A player must have a team. A team may have many players. A player has only one team. This means here one player is associated with one and only one team, but one team may have many players. That means the minimum quantity here is 0. Okay, so let's create a team table. Table name is team, primary key, team ID, and team name, team notes, so now we need to create a foreign key to maintain the one-to-many relationship between team and player, and we always use the primary key in the entity on the one side as a foreign key in the entity on the many side. So here we will need to use the team ID as foreign key in player table. So we can create a foreign key here in player table. Team ID. So be sure when you are creating the team ID, that's something called referential integrity. So the data type and the column flag should be consistent. Of course, this team ID in the player table is not a primary key, but you should still set it as not null and unsigned, and of course the data type should still be int. And to make things a little bit clear, let me move the team ID to the second. Okay, now let's build the one-to-many relationship. We first click the team ID in player table, and then the team ID in the team table. So this is a one-to-many relationship, but remember the minimum connected of player should be 0. So how to change this 1 to 0? Double click or right click edit relationship. In the first tab is relationship, you don't need to change anything here. And then the second type is foreign key. So in this relationship, player is optional because team may have many players. That means a team can exist without the existence of the player. So at least according to this set of business rule. So we need to unclick this checkbox, this mandatory for player, and this is one-to-many relationship. Yes. So as you can see, the minimum connector here becomes 0. So that's a similar process for coach table. So here the business room. A team may or may not have a coach. A coach must have a team. That means a team may have many coach. The coach is associated with one and only one team. Coach ID, and the second attribute should be the foreign key, but let's create a foreign key later, and now we can enter those attributes which are unique to the coach table. Coach last name, coach first name, coach phone number, big int, not null unsigned. And the last one is coach notes. So this is all still optional attribute. Okay, so since there is a one-to-many relationship between team and coach, so we put the team ID as a foreign key in the coach table. And that, as I said, the data type and the column flag should be consistent. And then first click the team ID in coach table, and then click the team ID in the team table. So that's a one-to-many relationship, but here the minimum connector still should be 0. Let's double click this relationship line and go to foreign key here. Still the coach is optional in this relationship. A team can exist without the existence of coach. So unclick this checkbox, and here the minimum quantity becomes 0. Okay, so and the last table we need to create is a team color table. Actually, team color is attribute in team table, but it is a multi-valued attribute. So if you can still recall the definition of multi-valued attribute, it may have more than one attribute, more than one data values. So you either create a bunch of columns representing the possible different data values, or you create a new, that's a preferred solution, you create a new table, a new entity, and build a one-to-many relationship between the original team here between the original team entity and the color entity. And the color, this color entity should inherit the prime key from the team entity. Okay, here table name color, and the first primary key attribute the color table should have is the primary key it inherent from its parent table, the team ID. Primary key not null and unsigned, and it also has a second primary key attribute. This color ID is also used to maintain the one-to-many relationship between team and color. So it's actually so the team ID is not a color ID. The team ID is also used to maintain the one-to-many relationship between team and color. So this one is also a foreign key. And the color ID is the primary key attribute belongs to color table itself. So please be sure you set both of them as primary key, not null and unsigned. So this color table also has as a register, it also has a composite primary key. And some other attributes it has color name, and color node. And since there is a one-to-many relationship between team and color, and the team ID here, in color table serves as both part of its primary key and also the foreign key to maintain the one-to-many relationship. So we first click the team ID in color table and then the team ID in team table. So the minimum quantities of color should also be set as 0. Okay, so that's a basic structure of the ERD. So you may get different view of those composite perma key. For example, if you are using a Windows platform, so there should be a red icon between parent ID, player ID, and team ID, and it's okay. It's not error. It's just because of the different platform. And so for this ERD, I also ask for the relationship name and the minimum cardinality for both relationship, for each relationship. So this one, the relationship name, registers. And the minimum quantities of both sides should also be marked using text box. I'm only going to do one set, but you will need to add the relationship name and the minimum quantities for each relationship here. And I prefer you change the color for each table. Okay, so as you can see here, these two are kind of the common standard relationship between tables. So they're non-identifying relationship, which means there is no weak entities. The player and the coach tables, they both have their own perma key. But see here, this relationship, and this relationship, they are depicted as solid line. So if you check the relationship here, they are identifying relationship, which means this registers and this color tables. Those two are weak entities. Okay, so the next part is how to enter the data record. So here you can and you should make up your own data records. But if you want to use the data records I'm going to show you, it's also okay. So first, for the parent table, parent ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So everyone should enter 5 data records for each table, and if you want extra credits, you will need to enter 10 data records for each table. as I said last Tuesday, the data record, the data value you entered should be consistent with the data type you picked up. So for example, if you set I think it's virtual 45 for parent street, then the data value entered should be no more than 45 characters. And here, since the parent state is in char2 data type, so you can only enter 2 characters here. And the parent phone is, I think, still required. Yeah, it's still a required attribute, so you must enter the data value. And the parent email, since this is a optional attribute, so it's fine if you just leave all or some of the data value as empty. And the parent notes is also an optional attribute, so I'm not going to edit any record here. Please make sure you apply change, otherwise nothing will be saved. And then the player table. Player ID, I can use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's enter the team ID after I enter the team ID in the team table. So player last name here. So as I said, the data value you enter should be consistent with the data type you select. So for player 8, it's a tiny int, so the data value cannot be larger than 255. And player email, this is optional attribute, so you can even leave every data value here as null, or you can just edit a few. And player notes is also an optional attribute, so I'm not going to edit anything here. And be sure you apply the changes. And we will edit the team ID here later. And then the team table. Team ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now we have the team ID in team table 1, 2, 5. And let's go back to the player table. Here, since this is a one-to-many relationship, which means a player must have a team ID, right? Because a team must be associated with one and only one team. But one team can have many players, so it doesn't matter if you use a certain team ID value several times, but every cell here must have a data value, and it should be a data value which actually appears in the team ID. For example, I think the simplest way is you just use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's okay even if you use 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 5 times. This means these 5 players belong to team 1. It's allowed by the business rule. But you can not have a data value here which doesn't appear in the team table. For example, if you have a 6, later you will have forward and linear problem. Okay, then the coach table. Coach ID can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the team ID, similar to the player, the team ID in the player table. The team ID here must have a data value because one coach is associated with one and only one team. So it cannot be left empty. But a certain team ID can appear here more than one. For example, just as I said, you can use 52, 53, 54, 55 here. That just means those 5 coaches belong to one team. But you cannot have a team ID 67 here because there's no team 67 in team table. Remember, always apply change here. Okay, now let's deal with those 2 tables which have composite parameter key. So this registers table, it has a composed parameter key, including the parent ID and player ID. And the parent ID used here in the register table should be consistent with the parent ID you used in parent table. So if you use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in parent table, you cannot have a 6 in the registers table, the parent ID column. The simplest way is you also use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and similarly, also use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for player ID. And register cost, remember that's a decimal 52. So don't have more than 2 digits after this point. So registered date, this is a date data type, so be sure you know how to enter the date data value, year hyphen month hyphen day. That's the only allowed format. And since here, it is a one-to-many relationship between parents and registers. So the parent ID here actually can be repeated. For example, if you use 51 in the parent ID, it's okay. It only means one parent registers 5 children. And similarly, the player ID here can also be repeated, the value. So you can have like 52 here, which means this kid has been registered 5 times by different parents, although I don't think it will happen. And the only thing you need to be sure is this combination, the combination of this data value should be unique. So it can be 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, or even like 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. But the combination should be unique. Okay, so the last table is the color table. And similarly, the team ID value here should be consistent with the team ID value in the team table. And the color ID is a primary key attribute belongs to the color table itself. So let me just use 1, 2, 5. And color name. Similar to the registers table. Here, since it's a one-to-many relationship between team and color, the team ID column in the color table, the value actually can be repeated. So you can use like 5, 1 here. This means this team 1 has 5 color. But you cannot use the team ID value which doesn't appear in the team table, like as I said, 6, 7, 8, whatever. Okay, I think I have done the data editing. So let me show you the forward engineering process. So first thing, please make sure you change the schema name here. The default schema name is MyDB. You should change it to UFS ID. For me, it's href13c. And database, forward engineering. Select 4 options here. Generate insert statement for tables. Drop objects before each create object. Generate drop schema. Add show warnings after every DDL statement. So as you can see, you have 6 total objects selected. You have 6 tables. Okay, if you see this window, forward engineering finished successfully, that means forward engineering is successful. If you use the CCI connection now to check the tables you have, you now have these 6 tables, and if you check the data record has also been mapped to to the server. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit about the referential integrator as I just discussed. So for example, team ID 125, and if I have since that's a one-to-many relationship, if I have 51 as a team ID value in the player table, and two and 4 as team ID value in the coach table, and I do forward engineering again. It works, it's okay. But if I have a team ID 6 here in the player table, and the team ID 7 here in the coach table, you will get this this forward engineering error message, a foreign key constraint fails. And for the color table, if I use team ID 1 5 times, it's also okay, because that's a one-to-many relationship between team and color, and this combination value, the value of this combination is still unique. So the first data value for the primer key for the color table is 1 1, second is 1 2, third is 1 3. So it's still a unique data value for the primer key. And register, if I use the parent ID, one 5 times, it's also okay. So similarly, if I use 5 1 in the player ID, it will work. But you cannot have like a 5 1 in the parent ID and at the same time 5 5 in the player ID. So that's the data value for this combination now is not unique, because you have this 1 5 5 times. And if I have a data value for the parent ID 6, which didn't appear in the parent table, and the player ID 7, It also didn't appear in the player table. You will get this same forward engine error message because it violates referential integrity. Okay, so that's all for the project 1. If you still have questions, or if you have if you happen to have other kinds of error message during forward engineering, please contact us as soon as possible so we can debug for you. Thank you.